Tim, I just got done watching The Colony. Amazing job. I was absolutely impressed and stunned. I also know that you actually wrote the film as well, or co-wrote the film. First question I have for you, Tim, is The Colony. Where did the idea come from, and what sparked this idea to bring this to the screen?
Thank you, first of all, for what you just said about the movie. I'm glad that you liked it. Actually, the very first idea I had was a visual trigger, because for the first time in my life, I'm a Swiss. I'm from Switzerland, and I know the mountains of Switzerland, of course. But what I didn't know is that Germany's tidelands, like at the shore of Germany, there's a certain area where there are the tidelands, a huge expanse of water and puddles and everything, where the tide comes twice a day. And for the first time in my life, a few years ago, actually, it took us quite some time to make the movie. For the first time of my life, I was standing there in this surreal landscape, and it was getting dark and everything, and the tides were away. So it was you could see. And I was looking at this endless expanse, and I thought to myself, why has this never been used for a setting in a science fiction movie?
Right.
And I just thought it's so easy, because I like to do things practical. I like if you try to avoid CGI effects as large as possible. And I thought, this is great. We could just stand here with the camera and have someone in a spacesuit waking up, and this actually would be another planet, like the journey to another planet, because it looks so surreal. Then, and the next step, but then when the co-writer Mariko Minaguchi and we started to do our research, we talked to the Deutsche Luft- und Raumfahrt, which is equal to the NASA in Germany, the same as you guys call NASA in America. It's this, we don't do that much of space traveling as you, but there's still a little bit something going on. And we talked to scientists and actually also astronauts that were there. And it was really clear from talking to these persons that it opened our eyes to that it would be very unlikely actually that we would ever find a planet within our reach that is actually habitable, that has these unique conditions as Earth has to serve as a habitat for humanity or for life in general. That's when we came up with the idea, maybe while we had a lot of sci-fi films telling about traveling to other planets or even maybe colonizing other planets, this would be about return. Sorry, it was quite a long answer, but I hope it was.
No, absolutely. I mean, is that also where you got the idea for Kepler also and throughout the story process? Because look, I will say right now, like wherever you shot was beautiful. And I was like, wow, this looks like, it does absolutely look like you're on another planet.
Well, that's cool. Thank you. We actually, even at the beginning, when we started structuring the story, we even wanted the audience to believe for the very first 20 minutes that you're on another planet. And then we had this, what we call the Planet of the Apes moment, because you certainly know, referring to this moment at the very end of the movie when they discovered that the Statue of Liberty, we're actually on Earth. So we wanted to have that moment. But then we realized that we need to, in PR or whatever for the movie, we need to tell that this is about Earth, and it doesn't make sense to try to give that twist. So we made it clear from the very beginning, but still it should have this surreal vibe at the beginning where you don't know, is this on Earth or where are we? So this surreal landscape. So I'm glad that you recognize this.
Yeah, as soon as this movie opens, when we're in the ship and you kind of get those cuts of what's going on, I was immediately drawn into the film. Now, quick question I have for you is that do you have any inspirations in sci-fi that you drew from for The Colony? Or are you a sci-fi fan in general?
Oh, I'm a biggest movie fan, that's for sure. And certainly people can tell that they are my influences. And I have to be very honest about this. Of course, I've never traveled myself to space or anything. So of course I draw also inspiration from other movies. That's just something I can't. This is like it is, but obviously we also try to do our research, as I told you, at the German NASA or the other production designer, costume designer, they did their own research and stuff. So that we also have inspiration from reality on how the space program looks like now and everything. So it's a mixture between the both of that. But also one of the producers involved in the movie, Thomas Wöckler, is read so much, and he read all these interesting sci-fi novels from the 70s or something. So there were also like from these kind of there was in these areas inspiration.
It's amazing. Now, tell me about the character Blake from Kepler and why she's returning back to Earth, or going to Earth, I should say, not returning back, but going to Earth.
Yeah, going to Earth. Yeah, that's well, so at the beginning, we think that she's just on a mission that she's being sent to find out whether her people can return to Earth or not. Because for the planet, this exoplanet where she's coming from, they have a problem. They can't reproduce anymore. That's actually something that also we came across when we were talking to the scientists there at the German NASA. I'm calling now the German NASA. That one thing we don't know about space traveling, how the cosmic radiation will affect our bodies.
Sure.
Would affect our bodies. So this is when we then came up with the idea, maybe it would be interesting if they couldn't reproduce anymore on this planet. This forces them to come back to Earth. So the film would also be about children representing the future and everything. But sorry, that was not a question. But so she's coming to this planet and she has this mission. But what we then learn throughout the movie is that she also is there on a kind of a private mission, that there was a first mission that her father was on, and maybe she also hopes to find out what happened to her father.
Yeah,
but when Nora Anetida, who's playing the character Blake, and I talked, we wanted to make it very clear that she's actually her very first priority is the mission, the job, and everything. But it's on another layer that she has that.
You know what? That's something I loved about The Colony. This movie's extremely layered. Not only are we seeing the effects of what Earth could be, we are also understanding that there's a layered story here with Nora's character Blake and her father, and even Ian Glenn's character, who's also amazing in this. But I want to talk about Nora for a second. She talked about your directing style. She really likes your directing style because you kind of it's all about the actor and not so much about hitting your marks. Can you talk to me about the collaboration process working with Nora and what she brought to the role of Blake that wasn't necessarily on the page?
Certainly, it wasn't hitting marks. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. I was just saying that because I think part of the job as a director is that you have to realize how the actor or the actress that you're working with is functioning. Sure. And Nora, I certainly realized very early on that she's a very intuitive actor. Actually, I don't even know. Do you say in Germany we would say actress and actor, but in English it's both. Actor is for both, right?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up. Yeah, I mean, we use both too, but I also say actor. So yeah.
Oh, I think it's cool if you just say actor. That's cool. So as she's an actor, obviously, who is very, very intuitive.
Sure.
And this is something where I try not to restrict her in any way by saying, you have to hit this or this mark. Just do whatever comes to your mind. This obviously then also proved to be in editing the most interesting moments, when she just was so much in the moment that she stopped thinking about the camera, about marks, about anything. Nice. And so I was realizing that I was trying to give her these opportunities, but I was kidding at the beginning. If you give Nora an actor a mark, she hits it, but we just try to not have her to have hits any marks, And the DOP, Markus Förderer, who already shot my first film, is very keen also, and he also has this, or we try to have this documentary style that you almost feel like you're there with the camera. And if there's a moment where it's out of focus or so, it wouldn't matter as long as the take or the moment is authentic and the feeling about it.
I was just about to say that because it absolutely makes you feel like you're within the action. And it also feels so natural. You know what I mean? Cool. Like everything's happening naturally in front of your eye, which I like. And you talked about this a little bit in terms of practical and CG, which is something I absolutely appreciate, especially in sci-fi, because you don't, it's nowadays in sci-fi, CG can be put in anything, but I think it's a little bit more challenging and a little bit more creative when there's the sci-fi element, but everything's done in camera. So can you talk to me about your usage of practical effects and CG and kind of like where your stance is on this?
Okay, yeah, of course, I love that topic. So I would, because I think it's so interesting. Because obviously, why wouldn't be even more and more CGI? There are even more and more CGI shots in the films. Yeah, I just look in a very early stage of the movie. We were doing a sci-fi movie, and we knew that there are other films also from Hollywood or whatever that have a. We had for a German-Swiss co-production, we had quite a high budget. But still, for a sci-fi movie, compared maybe to other movies, it would be considered low budget.
Right.
So when we producers and especially with Markus Förder, the DOP, when we started to thinking about how we're going to shoot this, it was very clear to us that we wouldn't want to try to compete with big CGI created shots. I mean, there are great CGI created shots in Hollywood movies, but we know that we didn't have the budget to compete with that. So we were saying what we want to do is like maybe on the other hand create a certain physicality for the audience, and to make it with elements like fog or drops it constantly in front of the camera to feel that you're really there, and that might be some other kind of value that comes to the movie instead of these great large CGI created shots. So I was obsessed with particles. I was obsessed with real life raindrops and everything, because no computer can calculate how these elements, this is just nature, they can't calculate. But I have to say though, still we had Scanline, our VFX company, who did a great job, I think. We have quite a few computer generated shots, but also for this, Markus Förder, the DP, and one of our producers, Philip Trauer, went to Bangladesh. This is in India, where the shipbreaking is happening, where the people workers are tearing apart these ships with their own hands. And they went there to shoot blades, because I think if we do computer generated shots, it's very important that you have as much elements as possible photographed in real life. So they shot these beaches there. It was quite an adventurous trip. I still owe them big time that they took this trip, because it's really dangerous at these beaches. And they shoot parts of these elements that we then compose, or Scanline then compose to these images. And Scanline is also a company that's very good with water, actually. That's wow. They specialize also kind of in water and these elements, and this helped them also.
It's amazing.
But we have also, maybe if we still have time, one last point about this, because I really like the subject. We also like the studio environment we had, because it was then clear to us, because I wanted, actually at the beginning, I wanted to shoot the whole movie in those tidelands I was referring to at the beginning, but it was quite soon clear to us that producers came to me and said, like, Tim, we can't shoot the whole movie there. It's like the flood is coming twice a day, and that's what's happening. And so it was clear to us that we would have certain shooting days there, but then we would have to simulate this environment. And we had quite a huge stage where we just had the floor, the sand beaches, and the background. This is where Markus Förder, I think, is really a great TOP, because he's always thinking in very smart, simple tricks. He said, no, we don't have green screen in the background. We just have largely photo prints that we light from the background. This saves you, it's very old school technique. It's like, but this saves you a lot of money, of course, because you don't have to have these green screen shots. It's the shooting is much more cooler, because actors feel like they're more there.
Sure.
And then it is even more important that you have then the elements in the air that are real. That is then super important, that you have the water and everything that would need to be real, but everything there, but the photo background was like really interesting that it worked. But there's also something, because it's just sky, it doesn't have too much parallax, so it would work. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Something like that, those are the cooler parts about filmmaking that I feel like is almost a lost art form. So I'm glad you brought it back here in the colony. That's super cool. Well, last question I have for you is, like, sci-fi sometimes can be seen as cautionary tales. What are you hoping audiences take away from the colony?
Well, if I would give this away now, they probably won't watch the movie, right?
Let's try to get
No, I'm kidding. I hope that they start. I think great about the sci-fi genre is that you can, without being too much on the nose, I think you would say certain things about things that are about happening now. And what I said at the beginning, that I personally think it's an interesting message that we maybe rather think about how we can save our own planet than making plans on leaving it. This is something, but I think also the movie offers different. Yeah, I think that's interesting about this genre, that people can just talk about referring this what they just saw to what is happening now. So I hope that there are some. And it's a film about the boundary between children and parents, and I think this will survive. This bond, I recently became father, will survive every kind of apocalypse.
It's amazing. Well, look, you're an amazing director. Nora's awesome.
Hey man, thank you.
Yeah, and like I tell you, the character Gibson, I think is great. Like it had me hooked because immediately I was like, oh, it's so disarming. But then you go further down with that character. Look, I just think the movie really comes together, and
thank you.
It's a lot of fun, man. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.